Hello and welcome to Eco Elsa, where I, Elsa, bring you videos to help you and your kids get outdoors, whether you're a parent or a teacher. On this week's video, we'll be going over a fun and affordable way to make a bird feeder that any budding bird enthusiast is sure to enjoy doing. As well as I have some announcements about an upcoming giveaway and my next few videos, so stay tuned till the end for that. So, let's get started! With the Great Backyard Bird Count happening this February, I have decided that until then I will be doing a bunch of different videos on different birding activities that you can do with your students and kids that'll help them learn about birds and the outdoors, as well as that you can easily incorporate into cross-curricular learning to learn about other subjects while still learning about birds. I will also be hosting a giveaway to celebrate the Great Backyard Bird Count as well. So make sure to stay tuned till the end of this video so that way you can learn how you can enter in this giveaway. Now that we've got that covered, let's start making our bird feeder. So what I will be doing is I'll be going over the supplies and steps for how to make your bird feeder, and then at the end I'll be giving you some ideas for ways to incorporate your bird feeder when learning about other subjects in your classroom. So for supplies, what you'll be needing today is the cardboard piece of the toilet paper roll, scissors, string, popsicle sticks, permanent marker, baggie, a bucket? No. A bowl, lard and a spatula or knife, a dull knife, and birdseed. The very first step, if you're a teacher, the very first step will be laying a tarp down because this is going to get maybe a little messy depending on how old your students are. Okay, step number 1. You're going to be cutting holes into your toilet paper roll. So you'll be cutting 2 holes closer to the top across from each other and 2 holes closer to the bottom across from each other. The 2 holes on the top are where you're going to put the string through to hang your bird feeder with, and the 2 holes at the bottom are where you're going to put a popsicle stick through so that the birds can sit on the popsicle stick. For all of these holes, you're not going to want to make them too close to the edge, otherwise your bird feeder may rip and then it's not going to work as well or at all. This may be a step you'll want to do ahead of time depending on the age of your students, but another great tip that you can use is using a hole punch to put the holes in instead of a scissors, as it'll be a lot easier for your students to do it and a lot less likely of them hurting themselves. So let's get started. The key trick is to make sure you put the holes across from each other. Notice it doesn't take a really big hole, just a little one, high enough up that it is not going to be ripped by the string. I can see you. Next is the holes for the popsicle stick. Now you can always put the holes directly across from where the string is hanging or against it. Either way, I find that they're going to blow as much in the wind one way or the other. So it doesn't really matter as long as the holes are across from each other and you can put a popsicle stick through them. So let's be rebels, we're gonna make them opposites. Now these holes, it's more important to get them high enough up on this so that they don't rip, because it's more likely for the popsicle stick to rip and fall out than anything else. You also want to make sure you don't make them too big or too wide, otherwise your popsicle stick can just fall out that way too. So notice I try to make it a lot flatter and a lot smaller in some cases. Step number 2 is attach your string and your popsicle stick. So notice mine are even at a little bit of an angle, whoops, but it's pretty tight and sticking in there good, so that is good. So even though it's at a little bit of an angle, it should stay. Next, make sure you cut the string long enough so that if you do need to tie it onto a tree so that a squirrel doesn't run away with your bird feeder, you can do so. I put it through both holes. Now I can just tie it at the top. And as you can see, it's a little bit more balanced because it's not just hanging by the edges. It has an actual string going through the middle. So voila! Now comes the fun, messy part. So next what you'll be doing is having your students coat this in lard or some other fat and then coat that in seeds. So as you can see, as a teacher or parent, you're probably going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, that's gonna be so messy everywhere. It's okay. It might be a little messy depending on your kids, and you can try and ask them to keep it as neat together. But some tips that will help keep this clean are: first, put down a tarp. The tarp is really nice. It should keep all the bird seed and stuff on it. And what you do is you then lift the tarp up, you dump its stuff into the garbage or outside, and if it has any lard or fat on it, you take it outside and you wash it off with a hose. Yes, I know it is winter, but you could always save it until spring to wash it off with a hose too, or wipe it down with a towel while you're indoors. The tarp is going to be what makes it a lot easier and quicker to clean up than anything else. So make sure you have the tarp to lay it down. I should have added that in the beginning with the supplies. Whoops, but now you know, have a tarp. So what I'm going to be doing today to represent my tarp is I have a bowl. So I will be doing is sticking my bird feeder in the bowl, and I'll be using my knife to rub on the lard, so then I can coat the lard in bird seed and it will all stay in this bowl, and when I'm done, I can toss the bird seed out that didn't stick to it. So step number 3 is coating your bird feeder in lard. Now, you don't have to use lard. Lard is an animal fat. I know some of you guys may have a problem with that. You can also use suet. Most of the things I've found over the years is that lard is supposed to supposedly work better because it is more natural. It's an animal fat. It's something some birds could potentially come across in winter and eat anyways if they find another dead animal and pick at it. But I've seen also that Crisco and peanut butter work just as well, and there's been studies that show that they don't have any huge negative impact on birds. So if you do want to be more natural, you can use suet and lard. If you don't care about being supernatural, you can use Crisco and peanut butter. But the other nice thing about using lard and suet is you're less likely to come into contact with a student who is allergic to the activity, like peanut butter, because if you have any students with peanut butter allergies, you probably don't want to be using peanut butter on your bird feeder because we don't want them getting sick. So let's keep the peanut butter out of the classroom. The most important thing when it comes to what fat you coat your bird feeder in is making sure that it is a fat that will freeze well, because this is a type of bird feeder that does better in the winter at freezing point or a little bit below it. You need to keep this sucker cool so that the fat isn't melting off of your bird feeder and plopping to the ground for all the little mice to enjoy instead of the birds. And you also don't want your fat potentially getting rancid and making birds sick. So this is why this bird feeder is recommended for doing when it's cold outside, and making sure your temperatures are at a temperature that will be good. So freezing, around freezing, below freezing, let's keep it cool. The nice thing about using some fats as well then is that they don't go bad if it gets too hot. They just melt off. So keep it in mind and make whatever decision makes sense for the birds in your area and your classroom. Stay away from peanut butter, honestly, unless you're doing this at home with your kids and none of your kids are allergic to peanut butter. Then by all means, enjoy the peanut butter mayhem and your children trying to eat the seed in peanut butter themselves. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick my string in the middle so that it is less likely of getting really coated with any fat, because we don't want that, huh? Now let's coat this sucker in fat. And if you get a little bit on the popsicle stick, oh well, just a little bit of treat for the first bird that sits on it. They'll get to lick their toes. Now, you don't need big dollops of fat. The nicest thing about the amount of supplies I got today is what I showed you is a visual representation of the amount that would take for a classroom of about 20 or more students. So I only spent $12 on the supplies today. So really, really affordable activity, especially to do with a whole classroom of kids. The big thing though is if you want this sucker to last, this is going to be the most crucial part, making sure this lasts, because that bird seed will be fine. There's more than enough. Make sure the kids are not coating it on too thick, because also if it's too thick, it's just going to slough off because of gravity before it has a chance to freeze. So this should be about good. We'll see. I might end up needing a little bit more, but I'm going to just spread it around like icing on a cake. Make it a nice even layer, enough that my seeds will stick to it. It's really sticky and messy, but that's why I have my bowl and that's why you guys have your tarp. This is another part your children might need help with. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Ta-da! Fat encrusted bird feeder. So it took me about 2 knifelfuls of the lard to spread it in a thin coat evenly around this so that my birdseed would stick to it. As you can see, I can still in patches see a little bit of the cardboard through, but that's fine. There should be more than enough fat on here to stick to the seeds and to keep the seeds attached to this once it freezes. Now, if you're using spatulas, say a little spatula, it'd probably be just 1 spatula coating worth. So keep that in mind. If you're doing that, you should have more than enough lard for 20 to 30 kids, okay? If you and a teacher want to do this together, by all means go ahead and just have some Crisco as backup. Okay, now what I will be doing is I'm putting the string back in, and I will be pouring some seeds into my bowl, and I'll be like spreading them onto the lard. My hands are going to get pretty sticky, so I'm probably going to want to go and immediately wash my hands after doing this. So a good tip for you to do with your students. Now, what is truly great about doing this activity as a classroom activity, for 20 to 30 students, is with all the materials I bought today, I only spent $12, and it's more than enough that I could probably do this with 20 to 30 kids without running out of materials. The 2 big things that you will make sure you need to not run out of are the lard and the birdseed, but I have 7 pounds of birch seed, so that should be more than enough to coat 20 to 30 of these. And then the lard, as long as the kids aren't spreading it too thick onto their bird feeders, you probably will not run out of it, and you'll have plenty to use again later, or for another teacher to borrow and use for their classroom. As well as make sure you just have enough popsicle sticks if you decide to do one of my engineering activities with your bird feeder. For step number 4, we'll be now coating this lard encrusted bird feeder with the bird seed that the birds will be eating. Some good things to keep in mind with this bird seed is double check and make sure that there are no peanuts or tree nuts contained in the bird seed, because if any of your students are allergic, they could have an allergic reaction from the bird seed, which will not be fun for them and will not be fun for you. So we don't want that happening. Also, a really good thing to double check is to make sure that wherever the seeds were processed, they weren't also processed with peanuts, because if you have a student who is highly allergic to peanuts, they could still possibly have an allergic reaction even though the bag doesn't contain any peanuts. It's just the seeds were processed in the same facility that processed peanuts. So make sure you're checking these things before you buy the seeds. This way you don't get back to the classroom and go, oh no, I have peanuts in my seeds, what am I gonna do? Because if you don't want those peanuts even getting into the air in your classroom, you're gonna have to go back and buy a whole different bag of seeds. However, if you can't find any bird seed that doesn't include peanuts or seeds that weren't processed in a place that also processes peanuts, here are some backup options for you. Your students can always coat their bird feeder with freezer-dried mealworms that you can also find in the birding aisle, or they can coat it with popcorn that's been popped and doesn't include butter or salt or flavors on it. Or they can also coat it in corn or other seeds that are separated from things that were processed in a peanut place that don't include it. Usually this is seeds like thistle. This way your students are all coating their bird feeders with the same stuff, no one's feeling excluded, and everyone's being safe. However, if you need to, you can always have all the students coat it in the bird seed, and then the students who are allergic to peanuts coat it in these other things. The freezer-dried mealworms are a huge hit especially. I want you and your students to be safe and to no one to have an allergic reaction while doing this activity. So make sure you're double checking that, since we are working with some foodie type items. But don't let your children eat the seeds either, because they're not for kids, they're for birds. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some bird seed into my bowl and coat my bird feeder with that seed. My hands are probably going to get all greasy and slimy with the lard and covered in bird seed. So this is a good point in the process to have your students go and wash their hands quickly, instead of trying to get their bird feeder in a baggie or into a Tupperware. So as you can see, even the big seeds are sticking to it, so your kids don't need to put a lot of lard on, even to get the sunflower seeds to stick. They'll stick just fine. Ta-da! Perfectly coated with lots of bird seed that's sticking nicely to it. Now the next step, step number 5, is to let this freeze solid so then I can hang it up without gravity taking any of the stuff off of it. A sandwich size baggie will work perfectly fine for doing this, but if you want to be more reusable and help out the environment, use a reusable container instead. Just make sure, whatever it is, you get their names on it. Ta-da! All secured, ready to be frozen. Additionally, some things to keep in mind when hanging this is make sure you're trying to pick a place where it will make it really, really hard for a squirrel to get to it. So on the very tippy edges of branches where a squirrel would be too fat and heavy for it, off of a roof or a wall, just know that they're probably going to get at these eventually, but the more creative in a place you can be, the longer it's going to take them. And if you tie it onto whatever it is you're hanging it from, it'll make it really hard for them to steal it with them, and instead they'll have to just sit there and eat it all. And then you and your students can at least watch them while they're eating it. Now, depending on what you're planning for the Great Backyard Bird Count, or whatever birding activity it is you're prepping for right now, thank you for watching my video, you can do a couple of different things with these bird feeders you and your students have just made. You can allow your students to take them home to use at home, or you can keep them all there so that you guys can start setting up your own bird observation station by hanging out different bird feeders as they get used up over the course of the next month. What's great about this is you'll have birds start coming regularly to the spot looking for food, which will make it a lot easier to include the birds a part of other learning activities as well as for the Great Backyard Bird Count, so that you actually have birds to write down on the days of the Great Backyard Bird Count that you all participate in. You may be asking, what is the Great Backyard Bird Count? Why should I care about it? I mean, I already have a ton of other things to do anyways. Why do I need to add on one more thing? I'm glad you asked. So what the Great Backyard Bird Count is it's a citizen science-led project that happens in February, this year in 2019, February 15th through the 18th, where regular birders and scientists all around the world take the time, one of those 4 days or all of those 4 days, to observe birds for at the least 15 minutes. They collect that data and they then submit it online to the Great Backyard Bird Count website, or they submit their data on eBird, which is an app you can get on your phone or your tablet. What is great about the Great Backyard Bird Count website and eBird is that you and your students can then look at the other submissions other people are putting up on the website. You can see what kind of birds people near you are seeing or around the world, what kind of photos they're uploading, and the students can really feel like they're part of a science community and they're participating in helping science move forward. Because they are. All this information and data that's being collected is going to be reviewed by different bird biologists, or AKA ornithologists around the world, that will take that data and see how birds are doing, maybe how migrations are doing, what things have changed year to year. And so your students are helping science, actual science and research take place and have more data that they can review around the world, which is super, super cool. What is also really great about building a bird feeder activity or participating in the Great Backyard Bird Count is that this all provides a lot of opportunities for cross-curricular learning that really engages your students and makes the learning fun, which is what EcoElsa is all about. And you as a teacher aren't hurt by this at all because you can still meet other standards while also still doing some of these great activities. So if you want to learn more about more activities that you can incorporate into building a bird feeder or any of my other activities coming up in the future, keep listening to the video. I'm going to go over quite a few more ways that you can incorporate the bird feeders into learning other subjects like engineering, math, reading, writing. Here are some ways of incorporating other subjects as part of this activity so that your kids can get more cross-curricular learning. Number 1, engineering and physics. When making a bird feeder out of a toilet paper roll, you can notice that it's kind of a little light, and even if you put on a popsicle stick, it doesn't get a lot of weight. What happens then is when a bird sits on one end of the popsicle stick, it can sometimes be heavy enough to tilt it and dump the bird even off of the bird feeder. You can use this as a discussion to talk to your students about the physics of gravity and why this is happening, as well as you can even use it as a creative engineering problem that your students can solve. You can have them all make bird feeders and then come up with designs for how to make their bird feeder more stable so that fewer birds end up falling off of their bird feeder. They can do this through a variety of ways, using toothpicks, using weights. The only stipulation is that birds still need to be able to feed from the bird feeder. They can't be blocked from getting to the yummy seeds that they need. You can even take this a step farther and allow the students to test out their designs to see which design works the best for allowing a bird to sit on the popsicle stick without falling off and being able to eat the seeds. Bird feeder that dumps the fewest birds wins. An imaginary prize, because there is no prize. Number 2, you can use bird feeders as an example when discussing with your students how all animals need food to survive. You can also go into further detail and talk about how animals' behaviors may change in the winter to help them better survive. You can talk about how some birds will migrate farther south so that more food is available to them before heading back north for the summer to enjoy nesting and raising their children. You can also talk about how some birds become a little bit more assertive in the winter because food is scarcer and they need to make sure that they get enough food that they can survive on. Both of these are examples that you can see at your own bird feeder when you set it up outside, as your bird feeder may have different guests at different parts of the year that you can then point out to your students like, hey, they're here for the winter, or hey, they're here for the summer. You can also see that some birds in the wintertime will become a little bit more assertive when it comes to feeding off of the bird feeder and chase each other away so that way they have enough food for them to survive and they have less competition. Number 3, math. You can use the bird feeders as examples for doing math-based word equations with your students, like for example, multiplication and division. You can take the number of bird feeders your students have created and then estimate how many days each one of those bird feeders would last. So for example, your students created 20 bird feeders, and you estimate that each bird feeder will last about 3 days. How many days total will the bird feeders last before you've run out of bird feeders to put out for the birds? The answer would be 60. Now let's say you wanted to take the question a step further and go, okay, so our bird feeders will last 60 days. What happens if we want to now put out 2 bird feeders at a time? How many days will they last now? So then you take 60 and you divide it by 2. So these are just examples of some of the math equations you can do to incorporate the bird feeders into your math lessons, based on whatever it is you're learning. Number 4, English and writing. Here are some suggestions of ways of incorporating the bird feeders into your English and writing classes. 1. Have the students write a story or journal about the bird feeders and what they think will happen when they set them outdoors for the birds to use. How do the birds see the bird feeders? What do they think they're for and why do they think humans put them out? Number 2, have the students correct the grammar of sentences that are all about the bird feeders. They also can learn some of the science-based facts about the bird feeders as well this way. And the third way you can incorporate the bird feeders into your English and writing class is having the students create their own data sheets for jotting down notes about the birds that visit the feeder, like the species and how many of them, but also a section for them to jot down notes about what the bird is doing. What kind of behavior is it showing? Is it assertive? Is it more submissive? What is that bird doing and maybe why? What kind of reasons could they come up for? And what's really great about this is if they're doing it on paper or in a notebook, then they don't really have autocorrect or anything, so they're going to have to practice their own grammar without having autocorrect to turn to. Very, 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 very last one. I promise. Oh, fingers crossed. Number 5 is reading. You can have your students practice their reading skills by reading about birds. So they can also keep getting more knowledgeable as you continue to do more bird activities throughout the next month. As well as, depending on the age of your students, if they are old enough, you can have them start practicing reading field guides so they can get some more practice in for properly identifying birds later on this month when you do the Great Backyard Bird Count. And as a bonus activity, a reward for students who have been doing a great job in the classroom can be hanging up the next bird feeder when the last one has been used up. As you can see, the Great Backyard Bird Count is an amazing opportunity for lots of cross-curricular learning with your students. So I highly recommend learning more about it if you'd like, and go ahead and click my description for a link that will bring you to the Great Backyard Bird Count website. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the news about the giveaway and how to enter! So this February, for my birthday and for the Great Backyard Bird Count, I am going to be hosting a special bird-themed giveaway. Definitely want to enter. Cool prizes. All you need to do to enter my giveaway is click the little subscribe button below and go to my description and click the link to join my email list. That way you can be entered in the giveaway twice! Twice! Is there an echo in here? Twice. 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 There's an echo. Okay. So over the course of the next month, I will be doing all bird-themed videos and activities to help you and your kids get outside and learning about birds for the Great Backyard Bird Count, or, learning about birds in general if you're doing another awesome birding activity. I'm also going to include with these activities other skills and subjects you can learn combined with the birding activity that are cross-curricular in nature. So they will not all be just science focused. There will also be some math, some English, some art, maybe some music and some writing. We'll see what happens. That way you and your students can get outside learning about birds for all subjects, not just science. Because that's a big thing I believe in, is cross-curricular learning to help students remember things better and to learn more about the world and how connected and wonderful it is. So birding is just the tip of the iceberg. Additionally, all these activities that I will be doing are all going to be affordable and easy for you to do, as I know you as teachers and parents don't necessarily have a lot of free time or money to put into these projects. So therefore, I'm going to make these as affordable and easy as possible to help you out and so that it's easier for you to get outdoors with your kids. Because that is what EcoElsa is all about. Getting outdoors and having fun, affordable things to do with your kids. If you are curious what these giveaway items shall be, make sure to watch videos between now and February so that you can get hints for what those giveaway items will be. Yes, you heard me correctly. I said items, as in plural, as in multiple winners. So, I'd keep watching and make sure to subscribe and make sure to join my email list. Thanks for watching my video today. I hope you all enjoyed it and I hope you all got a lot of great value out of it. If you still have more questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below and I'll help you out as best I can. As well as make sure to subscribe, press that pretty red button right here, as well as make sure to join my email list, link in the description, so that you can be entered in my giveaway for February twice. As well as check out the description for links to all the other resources I mentioned in this video, as well as my social media accounts where I post tons of resources daily to help you and your kids get outdoors. So as always, I hope you all have a fantastic week. You be safe, learn lots, have fun, and get outdoors. Bye!